जय श्री राधे। श्री वल्लभाधीश की जय। सब वैष्णवन को हार्दिक सप्रेम सादर जय Sri Krishna. Today is the 73rd day of our readings and Varta 65, the story of Laghu Purushottam Das Kshatriya, a poet from Varanasi. Bhav Prakash, the inner meaning. In the eternal Leela, he is a genealogist in Nandaraji's home, one who sings the praises of the family tree of their employer. In the Leela, his name is Uma Shankar, and here he was born into a Kshatriya family in Varanasi. He could sing kavit and dohas, particular poetical meters, even when he was only 8 years old. He used to write and recite poetry about the king, some rich men, or rich landowners. One day when Sri Acharyaji was staying in Varanasi and was at Manikarna Ghat doing his evening prayers together with Krishna Das and Seth Purushottam Das, etc., the junior Purushottam Das, the poet, came there. Seth Purushottam Das became very wary of this because Purushottam Das Jr. used to sing the praises of rich people, and he was afraid that he might begin to sing his in front of Sri Acharyaji, which would be most inappropriate. He went over to him and warned him not to sing anything about him at that time. Junior, Purushottam Das replied, "How do you know when we will meet again? I came here solely to sing your praises, and I will do so. You can pay me if you like, or not if you don't want to. I think you just don't want to pay, and that is why you are telling me not to sing." Said Purushottam Das gave him 5 rupees and asked him to come to his home where he would give him some more. "Right now, Sri Acharyaji, my guru, is doing his prayers. Do not make the mistake of singing about me in front of him." Junior Purushottam Das was happy to agree and said he would sing about some other kings and not about him. Said Purushottam Das said, "Well, if you insist, but do not sing about me." Junior Purushottam Das went in front of Sri Acharyaji and sang 5 or 10 poems about a number of different kings. Sri Acharyaji recognized him to be a divine soul and, looking at him with great compassion, said, "Oh, Junior Purushottam Das, you are the court poet and singer at Sri Nandaraji's home. Giving up the praises of the Lord himself, you are singing about kings and rich people, and this is nonsense. You are a poet, you are clever. Is there any merit in singing of such people who have no qualities at all? They are full of disease and sadness. They are like dead bodies full of sins, and so it is not good to waste your voice singing their fame. Only Sri Thakurji is worth singing about." On hearing this, Junior Purushottam Das was blessed with intelligence. He bowed to Sri Acharyaji and supplicated, "O Maharaji, I have wasted my whole life singing the false praise of fools in this way. I surrender to you now. Please grace me in such a way that I only ever sing of the Lord's glories. I do not know enough of his fame to sing, therefore I used to sing about those rich people." Sri Acharyaji told him to go and bathe in the Sri Gangaji river, after which he would make him understand. When he returned from his bath, Sri Acharyaji initiated him with the Lord's name and Brahma Sambandha. He gave him some of the water in which his feet had been washed. After imbibing this, Junior Purushottam Das had the sight of all Sri Thakurji's pastimes, and he came to understand all of Sri Acharyaji's form. Part 1. Junior Purushottam Das sang the Lord's and Sri Acharyaji's praises together in the same line, for he had recognized Sri Acharyaji to be the Lord himself. From that day onwards, he stopped going to the king's courts, etc., to sing their praise. Sometime soon after, Sri Thakurji began to let him experience him personally. He was always lost in the contemplation of the beloved Lord's pastimes. Such was the grace of Sri Acharyaji upon Junior Purushottam Das. He was an accomplished Vaishnav and devotee. Thus concludes Varta 65, the story of Junior Purushottam, although in reality there is no end to his tale. Continuing then with Varta 66, the story of Kaviraj Bhatt, a Sanodiya Brahmin from Mathura. Bhav Prakash. In the eternal Leela, Kaviraj Bhatt is Shandilya Muni, the family priest of Sri Nandaraji. He was born into a priest's family in Mathura. There were 3 brothers in that family. 2 were stupid. Kaviraj lived by singing poetry about gods and goddesses and famous people and kings, that he was called Kaviraj Bhatt, the best poet by all. He would sit on Vishram Ghat Composing his poetry. Part 1. One day, Kaviraj was on Vishram Ghat composing and singing poetry about Bhuteshwar Mahadev. At that time, Sri Acharyaji came to Mathura from Mahavan and went to Vishram Ghat to perform his evening prayers. That is when Kaviraj caught sight of him. He considered him to be most certainly an enlightened Pandit. He decided to go and ask him something. Kaviraj approached him and asked whether Mahadev or the goddess was more powerful. Sri Acharyaji replied, "According to the Shastras, Sri Thakurji is the most powerful. Beyond that, the one whom you consider in your heart to be the greatest is the greatest." Kaviraj then asked him what is the difference between Sri Thakurji and Mahadev. Both of them are called the Lord. Sri Acharyaji then spoke, "It is written in the Srimad Bhagavatam that when Sri Thakurji assumed the form of Mohini, a very attractive girl, then Mahadev was consumed with desire. Mahadev would never be able to enchant the Lord, whatever form he assumed or however much he tried. Therefore, Mahadev is dependent on and inferior to Sri Thakurji. Sri Thakurji is not dependent on Mahadev in any way. Those are the differences." When Sri Acharyaji spoke thus, Kaviraj was listening. In this way alone his intelligence became purified. Kaviraj bowed to Sri Acharyaji and asked to be accepted as his disciple. He said, "O Maharaj, just by being near you for a single second and hearing you speak, I find my mind fixed on the Lord. I think that if I become your disciple and stay by your side for a little time, then Sri Thakurji will definitely become pleased with me. Please initiate me." Sri Acharyaji said, "You are a great poet who composes his own lines. What purpose will be served by your becoming my disciple?" Kaviraj replied, "Without your association, I will just be wasting my time going round and round because I am such a fool. Forgetting the most qualified Lord, I have been singing praise to other gods and goddesses. Please bless me that I may forever exclusively sing only the beloved Lord's glories." Sri Acharyaji said he was about to leave for Adel. He told Kaviraj to come there together with his brothers and he would initiate them there, and he set off to Adel. Bhav Prakash. The reason for telling him to come to Adel before he would initiate him is that Sri Acharyaji wanted to make sure that Kaviraj could sustain his love for Sri Thakurji. He would not accept him without that quality of love and dedication. Part 1 continued. Kaviraj went to his two brothers and told them they must come to Adel with him in order to become disciples of Sri Acharyaji. They all set off together. They reached after some days, and Sri Acharyaji told them all to bathe and then to come back to him. Sri Acharyaji initiated Kaviraj Bhatt with the Lord's name and Brahma Sambandha, and said to the two brothers he gave the name initiation only. Kaviraj asked Sri Acharyaji who he had been in his previous life and how he had come to wandering around in the material world. Sri Acharyaji told him, "You were the foremost priest at Sri Nandaraji's home. You yourself produced the Bhakti Sutra, or lines of scripture all about the path of devotion. It is well known all over the world that your Bhakti Sutra cements that path of devotion. You were the best of sages. Once, however, you became proud, thinking that you were highly qualified in devotion. Vishwamitraji cursed you to fall to earth and become stupid." Kaviraj bowed to Sri Acharyaji and returned to Mathura. He went to live in Govardhan and sang poetry to Srinathji while sitting just in front of him. He also composed lots of poetry about Sri Acharyaji and Sri Govardhanathji. He was always immersed in the loving mood of the Lord's pastimes. He was thus a great accomplished Vaishnava and a recipient of Sri Acharyaji's great grace. Both of the brothers were uplifted by his association. Thus concludes Varta 66, the story of Kaviraj Bhatt, a Sanodya Brahmin from Mathura, although in reality there is no end to his tale. आज के आनंद कीजिए, शिव वल्लभाधीश कीजिए, सभी वैष्णवन को जय श्री कृष्ण भगवत स्मरण, जय जय श्री राधे, जय जय श्री राधे, जय जय श्री राधे।